What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Fish the Moment. So over the last few months, I've been getting a ton of comments and questions from you guys about how I use Google Earth, ranging from how I view historical images that I use in my videos to how I transfer waypoints from Google Earth to my bass fishing electronics. And so today, I want to break down some of the most popular questions I hear and give you my top 3 tips for how to use Google Earth to make yourself a more efficient and better bass fisherman this year. So let's get into it. So before we get into the tips that I want to cover in this video, you want to make sure you have the right version of Google Earth downloaded on your computer. So what you need to do is open up an internet browser like Internet Explorer, Google Chrome, or Firefox, and then you want to type in Google Earth Pro into the search box and hit enter. And then the first search result that pops up is Earth versions Google Earth, and you want to click on that right there. And this will take you to the Google Earth web page. And you see there's 3 options for Google Earth. Google Earth on web, Google Earth on mobile, and Google Earth Pro on desktop. And the Google Earth Pro on desktop is what we want to be working with. These other 2 versions of Google Earth do not work with the tips I'm going to talk about. And the mobile version on your phone doesn't work as well. I get a lot of questions about that. So we're going to go over here and click on Google Earth Pro on desktop. And this is a completely free software, no purchase necessary. It's completely free, and all you have to do is hit download Google Earth Pro on desktop. You want to accept and download, and then follow the prompts once the app is actually downloaded to your computer, and then you'll be able to open it up, and we'll be able to start breaking down lakes using Google Earth. Okay, so I just opened up Google Earth Pro, and when you first open up the application, you're going to get a window here which is the startup tips, and you can just click this little checkbox down here and then hit close, and that won't pop up again. And then here you go, you have a complete map of the entire Earth that you can scroll in on, and you can try to find different lakes around the country and see what you can see on satellite image. So if we zoom in here, we have Lake Washita in central Arkansas, which I like to fish a lot, and you can see that you have an aerial footage of the entire lake. And I'm sure most of you guys are familiar with Google Earth at least a little bit, and so I won't go through all of the basics, but I do want to show you 3 really cool tips that you can use to make yourself a lot better bass fisherman and a more efficient bass fisherman using Google Earth. Number 1. Find historical images of your lake when it was drawn down below normal pool. So the first tip that I want to show you is how to find historical images that go back all the way to the 1980s of Sam Rayburn Reservoir here. And I actually changed lakes from Lake Washita to Sam Rayburn by going up into the search box. I just type Sam Rayburn Reservoir and it'll auto fill right there, and you can click on that and then hit search, and it'll take you right to Sam Rayburn or any lake around the country you want to look at. And so what you can do on Google Earth, which is super cool, is access all of the images that have been taken over the years of the different areas of the country. And you can do that by going up to this top menu bar and looking for the icon, which is a clock with an arrow pointing to the left. And it'll say show historical imagery, use the time slider to move between acquisition dates. And you just click on that little icon there, and it'll pull up the sliding bar. You can see it goes from 2019 all the way back to 1984. And if you just click the button here that says click to travel back in time, you can find different images of this lake at different times. So this is an image from 2014 in December. This is an image from 2013 in December, 2012, 2011, 2010, and then you can also skip back even further, find images from December in 1995, all these different acquisition dates from the satellite imagery. And this is really cool because a lot of times lakes will get drawn down or they'll have a drought, things like that, and you can actually see the lake when it's really low. And so if we zoom in here, Sam Rayburn, you can see an image from 2011 was taken when the lake was 12 feet low. And if we look at the Black Forest area here on Sam Rayburn, you can see all of these little grass ditches. You can also see a roadbed under the water right here. You can see the tips of some of these main lake flats. You can kind of scroll up over here and see what the riprap looks like on these bridges, how far it extends out. you can see, again, tons of drains and ditches and hard spots, all kinds of cool stuff that you would never be able to see on a normal Navionics map or just by looking at a normal Google Earth map. I mean, if we look in here, you can even see an underwater culvert or a little bridge that goes across this road. And so there's so many cool things you can find by taking this aerial footage back to 3, 4, 5, 6 years ago. And if you're really lucky, you can find images of your lake before it was impounded or before it was actually dammed up. And so if we look at Randleman Lake here in North Carolina, we can go all the way back to 1993 before the lake was even here. And so it's really cool because you can see where all the roads were, all of the old ponds, things like that. And if we scroll ahead just a couple years here, you can see the lake kind of forming. You can see the creeks here, and then if we keep skipping ahead, you can see the lake is slowly beginning to form. And in this image right here, you can actually see some underwater roads and bridges and just all kinds of awesome stuff. And as you move the lake forward, you can see that all of these places are underwater. And you can now know that there's some really good offshore structure that you would, again, never be able to see with a traditional 2D map or just a normal satellite image from Google Maps or just the mobile app for Google Earth. Number 2. Transfer pins from Google Earth to the GPS on your fish finder. So after showing you some of these historical images of these lakes drawn down, I'm sure a lot of you guys are asking yourselves, how can I mark those spots and then maybe transfer them to my Lowrance or Hummingbird unit so I can find them easier on the lake rather than trying to guess where they are by scrolling this footage ahead, maybe triangulating them with points on the bank, stuff like that. Well, next tip I want to talk about is how you can actually mark these underwater pieces of structure that you find on Google Earth and transfer those waypoints to your bass fishing electronics and your GPS to be able to hit these spots really easily when you get on the water. So the first step in marking these spots and transferring them to your electronics is going over to this Places menu on the left side of the screen. Then you want to right click on Places, go to Add, and Add Folder. And I'm going to name this folder Test, because I have a ton of folders over here already and I don't want to get confused with my other stuff. And this will create a folder, and if we look at some of my other folders here, you can see that I have a lot of these little waypoints marked, and they're little pins, and all of these are pins that I've dropped on the map. And to drop a pin on the map, all you have to do is go up to the top menu bar again where you found the little icon to pull up the historical images, and you want to find the yellow thumbtack that says Add Place Mark. And this will create a new menu and a place mark. And you can actually pick up this place mark and move it wherever you want. So I'm going to move it right on top of this underwater bridge. Then I'm going to go over here. I'm going to type underwater bridge into the menu here for name, and you can see we have the latitude and longitude coordinates of this pin. And you could just go and plug these exact coordinates into your graph and manually type them in, but that takes a long time. So instead, we're just going to hit OK, and then I'm also going to drop another pin, move this menu over here, and then mark this other bridge, and I'm just going to call this one bridge. And now I have 2 pins on my map, and if we pull the satellite image back up to full pool, you can see that those pins are still there and they're out in the middle of the lake. It's going to be kind of hard to find those spots just by guessing where they are, but now that we have those pins there, we can take these latitude and longitude coordinates from these pins and transfer them directly to your electronics. And I'll show you how to do that right now. So to transfer those pins, you're going to go back over to the folder you created, which mine was called Test, and you can name yours whatever you want. And again, you can see that the underwater bridge and the bridge are now nested in this folder as pins. And what you're going to do is you're going to right click on the test folder, and you're going to save place as. And what this will do is it'll open up a window here where you can save your waypoints. And what I do is actually create a folder on one of my drives, and I have 3 different folder types named here. And when you're saving down these folders of waypoints from Google Earth, by default, it's going to save as type called KMZ. And you actually don't want to save as a KMZ file. Instead, you want to go over to this drop-down arrow, and you want to save it as a KML file. And then what I'm going to do is name a file KML and save my waypoints in this KML folder. And you can see I have several different KML files already saved here, and I name them as lakes. And I'm saving this as test for now, but you can name it, like I said, Sam Rayburn, Washita, Millwood, things like that. You hit save, and then if you pull up your folder over here and go back, you can see my test is now saved in that KML folder in my Windows Explorer, and now we have that file. So after creating that KML file and saving it to your file folders, you want to convert that KML file to a GPX file. And a GPX file is the file format that a fish finder reads, like a Lowrance or a Hummingbird or a Garmin. And it's what allows you to actually move the waypoints from Google Earth to your fish finder. And if you don't understand how all these file formats and stuff work, don't worry, just follow the instructions here and you'll be good to go. You don't need to become a master in computer language to do this process. And so all you have to do is navigate to a free file converter, and the one I use is kml to gpx.com, and I'll leave a link to this website down in the description below. And then just pretty much ignore everything else on the side of the screen here. I've checked the website. I don't think it has any viruses or anything. Don't worry about that. And just don't click on these ads and you'll be good to go. So just focus on this box right here. And pretty much all you have to do is make sure that this select conversion box is set to KML to GPX. Then you want to click choose file here and navigate to the place where you saved that KML file that you downloaded from Google Earth. And here it is, test.kml. Now I'm going to hit open. And then you want to set options to just waypoints because we didn't save any tracks, we just have waypoints. Then you're going to click convert. Then what that does is it converts the KML file to a GPX file. And then all you have to do is hit download your new file here, and that will download that straight to your computer, and you'll be good to go. And again, no worries about viruses or anything. This website's safe and good to go. I've scanned all the files with a pretty good antivirus software, so don't worry about that. So then once you download that GPX file from the website here, you'll find it in your downloads folder in your Windows Explorer. And the file name is kind of still down here on the bottom of the screen. It has this long name that I don't really know how they come up with that, but basically all you need to do is copy this file from your downloads folder over to a new folder that I name GPX. You don't want to save it right next to your KMLs because it'll get really confusing, and so I create a new file or a new folder called GPX. And you can see I have a bunch of GPX files saved here from other times I've converted waypoints. And so I'm just going to drag this file from downloads to the GPX folder, and then I'm going to rename this so that it doesn't have that long kind of weird name, and just take all that off. Now you have test.gpx, and you now have a GPX file that's going to be good to go to use with your Hummingbird, Lowrance, or Garmin units. So now that you've saved your GPX file to a GPX folder on your computer, you need to transfer that GPX file to an SD card. And here's an image of what an SD card looks like, and these SD cards will plug into your electronics and allow you to take the waypoints from your computer and put them on your graph. And I'll leave some links to some SIM cards that you can find online if you don't have some already. And the only thing is you need to make sure you buy a SIM card that has no more than 32 gigabytes of storage. Most fish finders won't be able to handle a SIM card that's more than 32 gigabytes. So the way you transfer this GPX file over to a SIM card will differ depending on which brand of electronics you have. And in this video, I'm going to walk you through how to do it with a Lowrance unit and a Hummingbird unit. So we'll start with the Lowrance units first. And before we get started, you want to make sure that you insert your SD card into the SD card reader in your computer. And sometimes your computers won't have SD card readers, so you need a converter, and I'll put a link to a converter down in the description below so you can pick one up if you need that. Then all you have to do is find the SIM card on the This PC area of your computer, and you're going to open up that SIM card, and then you're going to go over to the folder where you have your GPX file and just drag that GPX file over to your USB folder, and this will transfer or make a copy of that waypoint onto that SD card. Then all you have to do is take the SD card out of the computer, plug it into your Lowrance unit in the SD card slot, go to the Files menu on the main menu of your Lowrance unit. Then you want to click on the memory card option at the top of the screen, and then go over to the GPX file, and the GPX file will be whatever you named it. Mine was named test, and here it's named Sam Rayburn spelled incorrectly. This is not my video. It's another video that I found from Lowrance. And then all you have to do is hit import, and you'll import those waypoints onto your unit, and you just hit yes there to confirm, and you'll have those waypoints saved now on your graph, and they'll pop up whenever you open up the charts, and you'll be able to basically navigate straight to those waypoints you made on Google Earth. And then for all of the Hummingbird owners out there, the process of transferring the GPX file to your Hummingbird unit is a little bit different. First, you're going to have to download the Hummingbird PC application for your desktop computer. And I'll leave a link down in the description below that'll send you straight to the website where you can download this piece of software. And then once you download it, you go up to the top left corner to File, then you'll hit Open. And this will take you to a File Explorer window, and you just have to navigate to the GPX folder where you saved your test GPX file or whatever you named your GPX file. You click on that and you hit Open. And then you'll go over to where it says Test GPX right here, hit the plus, and then click Waypoint, and you'll be able to see all of those waypoints that you saved from Google Earth here in Hummingbird PC. You can also change the icons if you want to make it into like a brush pile or a fish or whatever you want to mark it as, and you can also see the latitude and longitude here. And then as long as you have an SD card inserted into your computer, this SD card icon will appear on the left side of your screen, and then all you have to do is click the Test GPX name right here and make sure it's highlighted in blue. Then you'll go over to this arrow on the left side underneath the SD card icon. It'll say upload from PC to SDMMC, and you'll want to click that, and then it'll say please choose how to update navigation device, and just hit add, and that will show you the waypoints. And sometimes they'll say that the name is invalid because it's too long. Basically what it'll do is just cut down that name, and so you can just say okay, no problem, and then it'll upload the waypoints right here to this SD card, and you can then take that out and plug it into your Hummingbird unit. So then here's my Hummingbird 998 unit, and this is really similar to the Hummingbird Helix units that are out in the market now. And once you have your waypoint saved on your SD card, what you want to do is open up the side panel here on your Hummingbird unit. Then you're going to take your SD card and you're going to plug it in to the SD card slot right here, just like that. And now that SD card is in the slot. And whenever you plug an SD card into your Hummingbird unit, you'll see that a prompt will pop up automatically that says upload nav data from SIM card or SD card. And all you have to do is press the over arrow on your directional pad, yes, and it'll say that you're uploading new waypoints. And in this case, I already uploaded the waypoints on another take of this video, but if you have new waypoints you're uploading to your graph, it will say 2 new waypoints added, and you'll be good to go. So now that you know how to pull up historical images on Google Earth and mark waypoints and then transfer them to your electronics, there's a lot of cool things you can do. So if we take this image back in time to 2011 and zoom in, again, we can actually start marking some of these ditches or underwater roads and give ourselves a really clear view of what these underwater structures look like. And this is really helpful when you're fishing on a lake without contour lines. So here's an example of a lake without a contour line map for it. This lake has no map on Navionics or any other chart that I've found, but there's some really good offshore structure on this lake. And using the historical images, we can actually take this lake back in time and see a lot of good underwater structure when this lake was like 10 feet low. And here you can see some really nice ditches, some brush piles, there's a stump row right here. You also have some underwater pond levees and even some underwater kind of jetties here that you normally would never be able to see unless you use this underwater footage, and there's no contour lines that you can follow to actually figure out where these ditches are. And so, for example, this ditch right here, what I might do is mark the edge of this ditch using these markers so that when I get out into the lake, I can actually have this ditch clearly defined with waypoints, and I can know exactly where that is on my GPS, and I don't have to try to guess where it is by just looking at a map or printing out an image of the lake when it's down. I can just drop waypoints all the way around this ditch, and I'll just speed this up here for you guys so you can see the finished product. So here you see I finished lining this ditch with pins, and what this allows me to do then is come in with my boat and know that the waypoints are on the right and the left side of this ditch, and then I can make my cast on the edge of this ditch where I see some stumps and some brush, and I've caught a ton of good fish in this ditch, and I normally would just graph over this in my boat and then try to mark the ditch as it moves up and down on my graph. But instead of wasting a bunch of time graphing on the lake, you can just drop these pins on the outside edge of this ditch, mark it up real easily, and then come out into the lake and have that spot ready to go and marked up so that you can start fishing it and not waste any time graphing on these lakes that don't have contour lines. Number 3. Identify clear water areas. And then the last thing that I like to do with Google Earth is identify where the clear water and the dirty water is on the lake. And so you can do this by looking at the color of the water on your screen whenever you pull up an image. And so if you look at Lake Hartwell here, you can see the water looks very dark and it's almost black. And then as you move up the lake here, you can see that the water becomes much more green and almost brown as you get up into these creeks and up this river. And this darker, almost black water here is going to be clear water, and the water that is more brown or green tinted is going to be dirtier water. So you may have 4 to 10 feet of visibility on the clear water section of Lake Hartwell where you see the water is very dark and black, and then you may only have 1 foot to 6 inches of visibility as you move up to the dirtier water up this river where you can see it's a lot more brown or green. And this is really helpful in 2 situations. The first is when you're looking for clear water on a dirty water reservoir or a river or a tidal fishery. And normally when the bass are getting ready to spawn, or if they're just looking for places to live throughout the entire year, they want to find clear water on these dirty water impoundments or rivers. And as you can see here on the Arkansas River, I just pulled up an image from the Redfield pool. You can see the water is really brown or green here on the main river. But then as we move back up into this creek, you can actually see some cleaner water way back in this backwater, and it's normally going to be clear back in these areas because you can see all of this grass. And the water here is a little bit darker. It's not as green or brown as even out here in the main bay. So this is really dirty water, maybe 6 inches to 1 foot of visibility. And as you move back in here where this grass starts, it gets a lot clearer because it gets a little bit darker and less brown. And so these fish like to sit in these type of areas, especially in the spring when they're spawning, but also year round if there's deep enough water back in there. And Google Earth is also really helpful if the water clarity on your lake changes a lot throughout the year due to heavy rains or wind. And a lot of times an area can be really clear one week and then a strong wind blows through and it'll muddy up the entire area and the fish will get completely shut down because the water went from really clear to really muddy. And so if we look at Santee Cooper Reservoir here and we pull an image from October, you can see that the water's pretty clear out here on the main lake. All the way out here, you can see it's pretty dark, maybe has 2 to 3 foot of visibility. But then if we move the historical image forward to February, you can see the main lake gets really dirty and you may only have 6 inches to 1 foot of visibility out here on the main lake. But back in these little pockets, they're protected from the wind. You can actually see there's some clear water still because it's a lot darker. And all of these clear water areas are going to be places where the bass are going to spawn in the spring. And if you weren't paying attention to the water clarity in your area and it went from clear to really dirty like this, it can completely shut down those fish. And so, especially if you're fishing during the spawn, you want to scroll through this historical imagery to find places where the water is consistently clear and it's not affected by all of this rain or wind that busts across a lot of these bigger lakes. So guys, that's it. Those are my top tips for Google Earth that will help you become a better bass fisherman this year. And if you're still here after the end of this long video, you're definitely a bass fishing fanatic like I am. And if you enjoyed the content, hit subscribe down below to be notified of my upcoming videos, and also leave a comment letting me know what you thought of the video. And if you want to support the channel in a more personal way, consider joining my Patreon page, where you can donate to the channel and help me make more content like this into the future. So other than that, hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time.